Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing for you the new Huda Beauty Jaguar palette that's part of the Wild Obsessions series. This color story is absolutely beautiful. This is one of those palettes that instantly looks stunning when you see it in the palette as well as when you see the swatches. I have put this palette through the test and we're going to talk through all the details. First of all, I love this palette. I think this is one of the better Huda Beauty mini releases, definitely better than the previous lot. So I'm actually really happy I have this palette. So let's talk about the individual shades. Now this palette has 4 matte shades. As you can see, it's got this dusky lavender color right here. It's quite cool tone. I can use it as a transition shade. I've also tried this all over the lid. Shade is perhaps a little bit too cool tone for my very yellow, warm brown skin. So I think that's the only issue for me specifically with this shade, but I can still use it. And depending on how you pair it, you can still make it work. Then we've got this shade right here. It is slightly of a drier texture, but it still builds and blends beautifully. So I didn't really have any issue with this shade right here. The interesting thing though is I recently reviewed, where is it? I recently reviewed the NARS Climax palette, and this shade right here, there are differences between these two shades. I feel like I can go a lot deeper with this shade when I'm trying to smoke it out, whereas even if I kept building multiple layers of this shade, it will only go up to a certain point, which is fine. It is still a very nice smoke out shade for brown skin. Then of course we have the lighter shade, which is great for just to diffuse out that outer blending. So the black is very pigmented. I will say though, it's not the best black I have. Actually, to be honest, the best black eyeshadow I own is a very old eyeshadow from Kat Von D back in the day, and I've yet to experience a black eyeshadow that's actually better than that. So this isn't really better than that, but it's still a really good black. I was still able to use it and create looks with it. So I'm very happy that this palette actually has a black. And then let's talk about the shimmers. First up, there are 3 shimmers that I absolutely love from this palette. You've got this middle shade right here, which is a really beautiful lavender top coat. It doesn't have a lot of payoff, but it actually has, if you compare it to top coats, it actually has quite a bit of payoff for a top coat shade, and it looks beautiful. It works so well even with my skin tone. Although it's slightly lavender tone, it has bright purple shimmer, and that really pulls the look together when it comes to using this shade. So I really love this shade. This silver, oh my gosh, wow. Stunning silver for brown skin tones. It doesn't wash me out or looks unflattering. It's very richly pigmented. Amazing color. And then this is that green shade that I've currently got on my lid. I think this is a very sexy eyeshadow. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I love and adore this green tone. I think it looks so stunning on the eye. Perfectly brown skin appropriate. Then we have the gold and this shade right here. Now the gold is I would say a pretty average gold. I feel like I have a lot of gold eyeshadows that are better than this, but it's not a bad gold at all. It performed really well, it applied well, and it did well to the eye. So overall, I'm happy with it. It's just I know when I'll be using this palette, I probably won't reach for the gold just because I have better gold eyeshadows elsewhere. And then this I think is the weakest link in this palette. It is quite difficult to pick a product with this shade. I feel like I really have to kind of dig in there with my finger, and even then the payoff isn't the best. When you do get payoff, it's very flaky and textured, and it just, I don't feel particularly happy with this shade. I can still make it work though. And I have done looks previously where I've sort of mixed these two together and then I've enjoyed the look. On its own, if I do a halo eye, this can work really well as well. However, if I use this all over the lid, I don't really like how that turns out. So probably, yeah, the weakest link in this palette. Now, I didn't try these formulas on a bare lid, but I did try them on top of concealer, and they lasted all day for me, so I didn't experience any issues in terms of longevity. Overall, this palette is really great because the mattes are easy to use. You can build them up. You can also blend them out quite easily. The shimmers, like I said, there's a little bit of inconsistency in this palette, with some shimmers perform extremely well. This one I would say is about average, and this one perhaps a little bit below average. But the palette altogether actually works really well. Color selection that I think they've selected with this palette is really spot on. I almost feel like this should have been called the Glam palette, perhaps. Let's jump into the looks that I created with this palette now, and then I will do a bit of a comparison between these two after that. So I've got my concealer just all over the lids. I'm going to pick up Natasha Denona brush number 12 and just going to go into this shade right here. It's very beautifully pigmented. Through here. Then I'm going to go into Spectrum brush number 11 and I'm going to go now. I've just got that blended out on both sides, and I'm going to go into the black and add a little bit just at the edge here. Then I'm going to go with Spectrum brush number 17, and I'm just going to blend where that black is. Then on the same Natasha Denona brush, I'm going to go back into the brown and add it to my lower lash line. Next, I'm going to take Spectrum brush in number 18, and I'm going to go into this black shade. And just going to add that really at the lash line. I'm going to go into this beautiful shade right here, and I really do find it best to use my finger to pick up this shade. You can use a brush, but I just prefer finger. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that to the eye. Oh my god, that's beautiful. Yes. Stunning silver shade. Beautiful, beautiful shimmer shade. Oh my gosh. And it really sparkles and glimmers. I don't know if the camera is picking that up, but it has a lot of beautiful sparkle. Hey guys, so this is the final look. What do you think? I absolutely adore it. Now, what I really love about this eye look is that because there's this shade in this palette, it's a little bit warm, and against that silver, this looks perfection. You don't need any transition shades or anything like that. All you need is this shade and it looks beautiful. And then quite purposefully, I wanted to match that warmth with my lip color as well. It also beautifully contrasts against that silver. So I think overall this look is gorgeous. It's too bad I have nowhere to go today. Well, we're in lockdown here in New Zealand, so I can't go anywhere anyway, but I just think it's beautiful. I really love how the silver eyeshadow really glimmers. It's such a beautiful color. Hands down, one of my favorite silver eyeshadows so far. For this look, I'm going to take this shade into the crease. Not because I want to, but because I want to show you what this shade looks like on my skin tone. So just going to apply that very gently. I'm using from the Katie Hughes Spectrum Collaboration brush. This is number 10. And I'm just kind of focusing that just in that area. So not a bad shade, but definitely quite cool tone. If I apply a small amount, I am okay with it. That's how much I'm going to apply. And then I'm going to go in with the Spectrum brush in number 12. And of course, I'm going to go into this Smoke Up shade. And I'm going to create a halo eye for this look. So going to apply that in the outer V. And I'm also going to apply that in the inner corner. Then I'm going to grab this blending brush. This is again from the same set. This is a 25-piece set, by the way, that I purchased, and I'm using number 11, and yes, I will be reviewing this set. And I'm just using this just to kind of blend out this shade. Now I'm going to go into the black and deepen up this area right here. And I'm actually going to bring it quite a bit forward. So this black is very pigmented, but I wouldn't say this is the most smoothest blendable black shade. It does work well though, so you can definitely use it. I don't think it's a bad shade. Just gonna go ahead and blend this out. Sorry, I'm using right now brush number 18 in that inner part as well. And again, I'm gonna bring it in. So my camera decided to have a tantrum, and in the meantime, I have just smoked out this side. I've just combined the dark brown shade and the black shade very lightly. So it's time to put on the shimmers. First, I'm gonna take this beautiful shade right here, just on my ring finger, and going to apply that to the halo eye. That shade is beautiful, almost like a lavender purple. It does have fallout, so just be careful with it. I'm just applying a little bit more just to kind of intensify that purple. Now, just to show you, I will use this shade and pop it on right on top of this shade as well. Now, this look is quite pretty the way it is. However, just to show you what this shade looks like, I'm gonna go in here. This shade right here, it's really just falling apart as I'm digging my finger in there, so it's very, very flaky and unstable. So I'm just going to apply that right on top. And what it's done is it's diffused down the look of this color. This is a little bit brighter, whereas this is kind of the darker version of the same shade. So it's just made it look a little bit more smoky. I did prefer the previous version with just this shade, but if you wanted a more muted eye, you can absolutely use this as well. Now I'm going to go into this gold, and I'm going to use that on this eye. It's the gold there, it's quite pigmented. Now I've just added in some concealer, and I've added a quick eye pencil. I also stippled this black right on top of that eye pencil just to make my lash line look darker. And now I'm going to go into the Spectrum brush number 12, go into this dark brown shade, and I'm just going to run that underneath. Just added some mascara, and this is the look. So this is the purple halo eye. And then, of course, the gold. For this look, I've got concealer all over my lids, and I'm going to go back into this shade right here, just with the Spectrum brush number 12. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I've shown you in previous tutorial. So there's really nothing different here, except in this case, I'm just going to deepen out this outer V quite a bit. So all I've done, you guys, is pretty much very similar to that first look. The only difference is I've added a little bit more black, and I've also brought the black sort of in towards the crease. That's really about it. And now I'm going to go into this beautiful shimmer right here. I'm going to pick it up on my finger. It feels very smooth, slightly creamy to the touch. Beautiful shadow. See, not every shimmer has that feel in this palette. That's okay. And I'm just going to add that. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm just gonna put that all over the lid. And I'm applying several layers just because I want this nice and dense. Take the blending brush from Spectrum's, it's number 17, and I'm just going to go ahead and smooth out the shiver in the crease area. I'm going to take Spectrum brush number 20, which is like a flat brush, and I'm going to pick up that shimmer shade, and I'm just going to make sure that the shimmer kind of goes right up into that crease area. So I'm just pushing it up. And this will also give the illusion that you have a bigger eyelid. This trick just makes such a huge difference. Hey guys, so I've got my makeup on and I'm just going to finish off my eyes. So going back into that brown shade right here, I'm going to hit my lower lash line just with the same number 12 brush. And I'm just going to apply that. Now I'm only going to focus this shade really in the outer half or even the outer third, and then just kind of blend it into sort of the middle of that area because I want that green eyeshadow to be at the bottom as well. Then I'm going to take the Wayne Goss brush in number 05, which is a little bit of a dense pencil brush. I'm gonna dip into that green eyeshadow and kind of work this product into the tip, give it a good tap, and I'm just going to run that right here. And I'm just swiping very gently because I don't want fallout. And so far that worked really well. And this is just going to give me a little bit of that green pop right at the bottom. And I'm going to go into the black and just very gently add it towards the end right here. So you're kind of creating the same effect that we created on the top but at the lower lash line. Then I'm going to take my blending brush, which is number 11, dip it into this brown shade right here. Now normally I would do this with a transition shade, but because we don't really have an appropriate transition shade in this palette, I'm going to take a very light amount of this on this blending brush and I'm going to run it just underneath right here, and that's going to tie everything together. Hey guys, so this is the final look. Ignore my hair, I couldn't be bothered styling it, so I've just left it alone. Here's the look. What do you guys think? I hope you enjoyed those looks. Now, I do want to compare the NARS Climax palette with the Jaguar, just because I know there are some of you kind of debating between which one to get. So as you can see, just by side, yes, there are some similarities that you can kind of spot straight away, but other than that, the palettes as a whole, they're quite different color stories. So this green right here is from the Huda Beauty and this one is from the NARS Climax. So I do think these are actually pretty different greens. I mean, there are of course similar tones, but you can see the Huda Beauty is quite a bit deeper and perhaps even a little bit taupe tone, like it has somewhat of a taupe and green hue to it, whereas the NARS leans a little bit more like a mossy green. Finish for these two is quite different as well. The Huda Beauty feels very creamy and soft. So when I popped my finger in the Huda Beauty, I could feel the softness. Very easy to pick up that shade. Absolutely beautiful to use and apply to the eye. The NARS is again a very interesting shimmer formula because it's quite thick. So when you pick it up from your finger, you feel all this chunkiness, but as you apply and glide that finger on your arm, it just really smooths out. So the texture between the two, very, very different. Let me swatch that deep dark wine shade for you. Now the browns are quite different as well. Here we have the brown from the Climax palette, and here we have the brown from the Huda palette. So definitely in terms of shade, there is a difference. They are very similar, of course. The Huda Beauty brown definitely leans more brown rather than red, whereas from the Climax palette, it's a little bit more wine undertone. In terms of texture, Huda's definitely feels a lot smoother. Now, Huda does do great mattes. I wouldn't say this is her best matte ever. I have experienced slightly better mattes in her other palettes, but it's still a very good matte. In terms of swatching, the Huda definitely swatches a lot better and a lot smoother than the NARS Climax, but I can tell you from experience that both of these shades apply and blend really nicely, so you don't have to worry about that. So yes, there are absolutely some similarities here, but I do think the palettes are quite different. In terms of picking one over the other, it really depends on what color story really speaks out to you, what color story perhaps you don't have already or you think you may use more frequently than the other one. Both of these palettes have enough depth for brown skin tones, so that is not an issue. Of course, with the Huda palette, it's got that black that I think deeper skin tones will really appreciate. And both palettes have really great shimmer shades and slightly disappointing shimmer shades. So I feel like in that they're quite equal as well. I am very happy with both of these purchases. I think these are excellent palettes. As you guys know, I've been loving green lately, and so I love that both of these palettes have a green. Yes, that's amazing. This is a beautiful tone, quite different. I think if you've seen my look with the green eyeshadow with the NARS palette, it actually does look very different. And I know that some of you may actually prefer this green over the Climax. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you guys in my next video. See ya!